Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 10 of the Lebanese Biodiversity podcast. My name is Mira, and I am an entomologist. It has been a while. I hope that you're all doing well and staying safe. And here we go again with an episode that was recorded some weeks ago, actually. And so today we will be talking about plants for the first time on this podcast, and there is a lot to cover on this topic. My guest will be Christie Atallah, conservation biologist and plant enthusiast. She will be telling us about flora assessments, what they are, and why they are important for plant conservation. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Hello, Christy. How are you today?
Hello, Mira. I'm great. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. Thank you for having me. First of all, I am Christie Atallah. I was born and raised in a beautiful tiny village named Bashel in Tisserwin. I am a twin. I have a bachelor degree in biology and a master's in biodiversity conservation and management of natural resources from the Lebanese University. I am a passionate conservation biologist and a plant enthusiast.
Okay, thank you. So, your study area, you just mentioned you had done your studies at the Lebanese University. Would you like to tell us more about your background?
Yes. If you ask me, what would you see yourself in 5 years once I started university, I would never answer it like, I'm working in conservation or plants or everything. It was totally different answers. But through my years in university and the guidance of my mentors, they highlighted that the field of biodiversity, especially the flora one, and they told me about the importance of it and how we have so many projects, ongoing projects, and it is a very interesting field. So they kind of encouraged me to do this, and by the third year, like I set my mind into it. I finished my biology degree, and I said yes, I'm going to study biodiversity. And throughout the years, and after during my last year of my master's, I started an internship, especially like working with the management plans and flora assessment and everything. And I fell in love with it. And currently, I'm working everything related to this, like biodiversity assessment and reserve management plans with municipalities, and especially like flora assessments. So yeah, that's a little bit about how I started it and how I became the person I am today.
Well, thank you very much for this recap. And I am glad to hear that you have found something, that you have found a working area that seems to really make you happy. Can you tell us a bit more about the current projects that you are working on? So you mentioned that you do biodiversity assessments. Can you give us a few examples of that and also a few examples that other types of work that you do?
Yes, of course. Currently, I am working alongside amazing people, amazing experts on several projects with different protected areas like the Shuf Biosphere Reserve, the Mount Hermon Reserve, and the Hima of Wadi al Karakir. We are doing biodiversity assessment that includes everything, like from fauna to flora to fungi and everything in between. My part is the flora assessment. What is the flora assessment? Basically, we go on several field trips, explore different habitats during all seasons, especially flowering season, like the spring season. We take fixed plots and we take several transects. We go along this transects and the fixed plots all the way, all around the year, and we see what we have like species. We take photograph of each species, of each part of it, like the leaves, the flower, the fruits, the bark, everything. So we'll be able to identify it. And once we identify it, we create a checklist. Like this checklist contains the name of each species. That's the first column. The second column, like we have the IUCN status, if it's vulnerable, if it's endangered, if it's cool, we don't need to work on it. And then we see the degree of endemism, like if it's found only in Lebanon, if it's found only in the Mediterranean, in the region. if it's endemic or not. And we would see also the uses of this plant, if it's good for medicine, if it's ornamental, if it's good for agrobiodiversity. So yeah, we create a general checklist, contains all the info, and we give this checklist to the reserve or to the HIMA or whatever. The next thing we do is we do like training session for youth, for rangers, for everything who's interested in knowing. We talk about how to identify species, what are the native species of Lebanon, how to protect them. Uh, and of course, that's part of the assessment. And another part of the assessment is the further work. It's the studies, it's the research about what can we do to protect? What can we do to explore more? What can we do to conserve this microhabitat of this specific species? So something like that is for the flora assessment. I also work like privately. We could go on tours. We take students to reserves and we talk about the species, the endemic ones, what's important, why it is important to protect them. We talk about the natural heritage and everything. So yeah, that's part of what I'm currently doing.
Okay, this is a quite a wide range of intervention, and I want
Yeah,
to just go back to the technical aspects of recognizing a plant. So,
yeah,
you go on the field, right? You want to make a list of the plants that you can find on a specific site in a specific season. So there are things I suppose that you can recognize right there on the field.
yeah.
Do you have to sometimes take samples? Do you need any particular material? Like, do you sometimes need binoculars or any other material in order to see details on the plant? How, like, can you tell us just a bit more how this works? How do you recognize a plant and what
Yes.
resources do you use?
So mainly the trees are recognizable like by eye. You can see it, you can see that it's a cedar. But sometimes, usually we take references, like we use references. The main references that we use are the ones of Motard and the one of Tame and Tame, the
Mm,
illustrated flora of Lebanon. This is our main references. And also we can also use some references like the plants of the world online. If we don't know what the species is, we can ask our colleagues or other experts if they know what the species is. So that's the main one. And for like small plants or the ones that we need microscopical intervention. So we take samples, of course, and we see under the microscope. We look furthermore into the details to know how to see which species it is. And sometimes like we lack the material, so we send them away. We take samples, we send them to other universities so they can take a look at them, do like some DNA sequencing, and know exactly what the species is, especially if there's a confusion between two species. Like sometimes we say that this is the species and this is a different one. Eventually, when we follow the DNA sequencing, the result is that this is the same one. So yeah, we do several intervention, but mainly the first intervention is you look at it, you take a picture of it, you compare to the database or the main reference that we have.
Okay, okay. So, well, for some plants, especially the species that are, I don't know if there's the concept of cryptic species in plants, but for the species that are difficult to recognize, there is a
Yeah.
bit of work, there is a bit more work that goes into pinning them down or being able to name them. So
Yes.
you have this plant list in hand now, and you mentioned that when you do this plant list, you send it over to the management of the protected area of the natural or the natural reserve, for example. What is the importance of doing flora assessments for the protected areas? So where do they go from there with this information that you gave them?
Yes, of course. Firstly, why it is important for them? Like, if the reserve don't know what it contains, they can't do anything. So the first one, they aid them to know what they have, like what this reserve contains, what are the endangered species, what needs to be protected, and that's the first one to know what you have. The second point, I think that when you compare the recent data to old data, you know what changed. and you can work on it, and you can work on why this has changed, why now we can see plants that were absent before, and now we have, and why we lost plants that were present before. We can work further, we can do further research on the why. We can see how habitat is affecting the plants. We can see how the geology is affecting the plants. Like from this, we can do further more research. We can have further work to do. And the third point is when you know the plants and we know what they are used for, you can use them sustainably. Like you can know what plants can be foraged. Now, I can give you example, like in the Shuf Biosphere Reserve, they do something called the distillation of Ipericum. Ipericum is the flower of Saint John. They take several types of Ipericum. They do the distillation and they use it as an essential oil for several medical cases. Same for the distillation of wild lavender. Another example is that they use the wuzel in Arabic. They do
Yes.
briquette. Briquette, it's a form of wood that they use in the oven. Like wuzel was always abandoned and looked at as something that they can't use. Now they are using it. So when they know what they have, they know how to use it sustainably, and they know what further research they can do. So it's like a baseline, the flora
Okay.
assessments. It's a baseline, and from that they can go furthermore.
So, from the projects that you have worked on so far, like the one that you mentioned now in Shuf, which one would be your favorite, or the one that you consider the most impactful?
I think my favorite one was my first project. Like I was still in college. I had no clue what I was doing, but I went for it anyway. So a lot of mistakes were made, but I learned a lot. The project consists of doing not only flora assessment, but biodiversity assessment in Wadi Qadisha. Not all of it, of course, a part of it. So I was doing everything. I learned a lot of fauna, flora, fungi. And the most important or fascinating thing for me was that we used artificial intelligence. Like we used camera traps, we used audio recorders, we used cyclones to collect spores and to collect pollen. And we used malasse trap to collect insects. It was very interesting for me to be able to work with artificial intelligence and to see these equipments and to use them every day. And I learned a lot actually from it. And this was the point where I knew that, oh, okay, I need to work on myself more and teach myself more because no one's going to teach me. So yeah, I think was my favorite project. It was the main point that I started it from. So this was
Yeah.
it.
Well, I mean, Wadi Qadisha is also an extremely interesting place in terms of biodiversity history, and I can really imagine it becoming your favorite.
Yes, it
I'm
was
sure this was a
amazing.
very good memory. Yeah. So let's dive right into the flora of Lebanon. I have few questions for you on that subject. Can you tell us roughly how many plant species do we have in Lebanon? So trees, flowering plants, everything.
Yeah, I love that you said roughly because we don't have like an exact number. According like to references in 2014, we had around 2,612 species, like altogether trees and plants and everything. But
Okay.
now, and from recent data, we have around 3,150 species, which is huge and which is amazing for Lebanon, a small country that contains this number of species. It's really amazing. And this is an ongoing project or ongoing work. We always discover new species or new subspecies. We discover new habitats, hence new species. So yeah, it's roughly around 3,150, but I think we will have more in the near future.
Yes, this is amazing. This is already a lot of plants for such a small surface. And how many of those, the proportion or the number, as you prefer, are endemics? So, well, let's start by endemics to Lebanon and maybe then endemics to the Levant or the region.
Yes. Like endemic to Lebanon, I will say it's an approximate number. Like we don't have exact data on how much or how many species do we have in endemics to Lebanon. Like the number in 2014 was around 154 species, but that number declined to 94 endemic species. That I'm talking species strictly endemic to Lebanon. So
Yes.
now we have around 900. 94 endemic species. Why this number differed? Because now we are discovering like some species were widely spread, some species were thought to be endemic, were no longer endemic, and vice versa. Several species, like in Mount Sanin, we discovered so many species that were endemic to Lebanon. And I don't have an exact number for the Levant, but we have in Lebanon, like if we say endemic species, not strictly to Lebanon, it was like around 12% of the whole Lebanese plants are endemic even for the region, or مثلا, for example, for Lebanon, Syria, and Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, and Cyprus, Lebanon, Syria, and Turkey. So yeah, 12%, it's a huge percentage. And even 94 species is a huge number for Lebanon.
Yes. Well, also, again, because Lebanon has a very small surface, there will be a lot of plants that we thought were endemic that can actually be found a bit outside of the border on, around Lebanon. So
Yes, exactly.
94, I agree that this is still a pretty high number. And so, okay, 12% for the estimation of the endemics to the region. That is also quite a lot. Do we have any protected plant species? Um, Protected by law or otherwise. And the second half of that question is they are protected because why? What are the threats that they face?
Okay. So the main protected plant species, it's the emblem of Lebanon, the cedar, Cedrus libani.
Okay.
And some tree species that are protected from cutting, but there's like actually not a plan like that say that we have to protect this, then this, and this, and this plant. There's some initiative to protect some kind of plants like the iris. Some of them are endangered or vulnerable, so they are protecting them, but we don't have an actual plan to protect this type of trees or this type of plants or everything. We have small initiatives. We are doing everything we can to conserve as much as we can. So that's what I can say to you. When
Okay.
it comes to the threats, I think the threats that all biodiversity is facing are several. Let's start from overgrazing, overharvesting, the urbanization, the quarries, the climate change, the pest outbreak, fire outbreaks. Plants can't run, can't run from the threat or hide or something. They are in their place. They are fixed. So they face all the threats they can know. So yeah, we have several threats.
Okay, and from what I understand, until now, herbaceous plants or plants growing under the cedars in this case do not have any particular protection status, even if they have a catastrophic status in the IUCN. And this is still
Yes.
something that needs to be done. Okay, well, a lot of work to do here. And
Yeah.
how can people help make this happen? So, how can the general public get involved in pushing for conservation of the native plants?
I think the answer for this question is that they need to know. So the main point is to raise awareness and to educate. So when they know, now they are interested in conservation. Awareness and education, it's the main point actually. When you tell the people that this is important, this is your natural heritage, You can use this plant. It has so many uses. It could be medicinal. It could be used in agro biodiversity or everything. Now they know. They are interested in conserving it. When they don't know, they don't care. So we have to work on this point firstly. And when they care enough, they are interested in conserving. So I think the main starting point is awareness. Um, and by the way, the people love to conserve. I will give you like just a quick example we encountered during our work. We were looking for some species during our field work in Shuf, and we couldn't find it. It's some kind of orchid. It was a parasite orchid that grows on pine trees. We couldn't find it. We were talking with the locals and everything. They told us that if they saw it, they will tell us right away. And actually, that's what happened. One of the locals saw it, took a picture of it, sent it to us, and told us about the location. So it's also important to get the people to be involved in conservation. They love to be involved, but they just need to know.
So, for example, if we imagine a citizen science project with plants, because this is now very present in Europe or in the US or Australia, it's starting to become like very fashionable. Also, if I can use this word, do you think taking pictures of plants is a good way to involve the public in a citizen science project for plant conservation? Like, if
Yes.
people send you accurate enough pictures, can you have a decent chance of naming it?
Yes, yes, of course. And by the way, we have a Facebook page called the Flora of Lebanon in pics. So everyone could download the picture of the plant they found, and there are many experts that they will tell you what this plant is. So
Okay.
yeah, it's very interesting. It's very beautiful, and they get people involved through social media. So it's very beneficial for the future.
Okay, well, this is great. And thank you for mentioning the group. I'll try to link it. I'll try
Yeah.
to link it below the Facebook page, below the Facebook post. Sorry, we're getting there. And what can official entities, so governmental entities and environmental NGOs, do for the protection of the native flora? We do have quite a bit of NGOs that are involved in the protection of the native flora, but like what do you think their role can be
Yes,
in
we
pushing
have
for
not.
conservation? Yeah.
Yes. I already talked about the first point, and I think, and I always say it first, it's the main point is awareness and education. So when you teach everyone, all the generation, when you teach young people, when you teach farmers, when you teach everyone who's involved in the environment, uh, they will help a lot. They will help a lot in the conservation, in the protection, and in identifying species in general. So that's the main point, I think. Awareness sessions, and why not like include something in the curriculum that will introduce the native flora of Lebanon in schools. So that's the first point. And I think the second point, which is the main one that we struggle with, is fundings. So as you said before, we have so many projects, we have a lot of work to do, but little resources. So and the second point could help a lot if we have like more resources to go furthermore, to work furthermore. And the third point, and for me, this is the dream, or this is the most important point, is for every NGO, university, any environmental related organization in Lebanon to unite and create one database that includes everything from fauna to flora to fungi. Like we have our own information, and this university has its own information, but we don't have something united. So when we have this united or a database, it will be so much easier for us, one, to find the information and to make sure that this information is valid. So yeah, I think those three main points are if the NGOs and everyone could work on them, we can achieve so much more.
Okay, so we do need more bridges between the different disciplines, and this will be necessary in all cases to build a national biodiversity database. So
Exactly.
we are counting on our official entities to make that happen. Uh,
Yeah,
what what advice would you give to people who would like to study plants or are
just
interested in
go for
plants?
it.
Okay.
Just go for it. Don't be afraid. Please don't listen to what people will tell you. Like they will tell you everything. They will tell you that this is not good, that you can't live with it, or everything. Just go for it. It won't come easily. You have to work on your knowledge, but it's so rewarding. We need extra hands in here, so go for it.
Thank you. And do you have any closing ideas, anything you would like to end this interview with, shout outs or links you would
Uh,
like us to add to the posts for this interview?
I will tell the people to stay tuned. We are working, me and three other of my colleagues, on a nonprofit organization that aims to educate and raise awareness on the problems and solution in the nature conservation domain. So stay tuned for that. And when it
Okay.
will eventually come true, we would like all the help needed. So yeah,
Can we have you on the podcast when it's official?
yes, of course.
Cool, that would be great. Okay,
So
well,
yeah,
thank you very much for your time. This was really great. It was nice having you, and well, meet you soon, hopefully.
hopefully. Thank you, Mira.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye bye.